Okay, it's Thursday, January 13th, midday, and I just thought I'd shoot a video here highlighting a day trade I made today in Home Depot. I bought it at 392.77 and it reached my target. And again, I just wanted to highlight some of the ways I apply the Strat principles to my day trading. And it kind of shows how I, start all the way at the highest time frames. This is actually the monthly chart to start, and then I work it all the way down to look for day trade opportunities. So just one approach that I happen to use, but maybe it will bring up some concepts that will be of interest. So on the monthly chart, for example, this is the first thing I always look at with any stock and any trade I'm looking to take. I see that immediately we're in a red month. In other words, we opened up, if I take this line, we opened up here in January, we're heading lower. So the continuity typically is on the downside, and that typically means I'd be looking for short trades. And, I can get into earlier in the month why we opened up lower, and then therefore we were targeting this month's low. And if we break that, eventually we might be going down here and we can head down there. But in this case, obviously I look to buy Home Depot. So I just kind of wanted to show you in this case why it's a little bit of a rare development. And the main thing is if I go to the daily chart, it's because we broadened to the downside, earlier in the week on Monday. So we had the broadening action on the downside started up. And when I go to the weekly chart in those conditions, I do see we are above the open of this week, at this point, we're on Thursday today. So this week is heading higher. Now, it's not really heading higher strongly. We still have to wait for the week to end to maybe get another two up to really see that we're going to start broadening higher. I'm not convinced of that yet, but you just have to wait and see. But at least for a day trade, there was some context in play, even with the monthly being red, on the weekly kind of heading up. And I'll show you in a minute, at the time, the daily bar, this is the daily chart, that was also green and above its open heading higher. So keep that in mind. I mean, that was kind of the setup, the logic here, that we did broaden on the daily chart. The weekly chart is green above its open at that point in time heading higher. And then I'll go to the 15-minute chart, which is my bread and butter for day trading, and I'll show you what developed there to have everything aligned to at least look for a day trade and some of the things I look at on the 15-minute chart. So and also quite frankly, let me put this back to a monthly chart, why there was an excellent short trade today on Home Depot also, which I didn't take, but I'll show you why it developed. So anyway, just starting out with the monthly chart, I do know we're red and heading lower, but we did broaden out, and some other shorter term time frames are in place to go long. So what happened here on Home Depot, and again, this isn't the greatest setup I've seen, but it was a setup that I happened to be looking at the time, and I took it. So at least I'll point it out, and I'll actually go to another day trade in a minute. Boeing I took, which is a much more standard setup I look for. Same principles in play, but anyway, with Home Depot, what happened was on the opening bar here, and I'll draw a line. You had the opening price right there, and it had a red bar going down. So I'm not it's not above the open. I'm not really interested in buying it in terms of a day trade. Also, I just wanted to point out with my day trades, I like to see it above the midpoint of the prior. All this action I'm going to point out, as long as it's all above the midpoint of the prior day, or kind of heading above the midpoint of a prior day, that's important for me. But that's just another thing I kind of use to screen all my day trades. So in this case, obviously, Home Depot was above the midpoint of the prior day. But anyway, going back to the 15-minute chart, we opened up here and headed lower on the day. Then on the first bar on the 15-minute chart. Then we moved all the way up and kind of moved back here towards the intraday highs on bar 2, and then kind of fell off. So we had two bars in a row that were kind of like almost like a trading range kind of thing, and neutral if you look at the two of them together. But then what happened was you had an inside bar on bar 3. So the buy triggered here on bar 4, where we were moving above the inside bar. That's a typical strat, inside bar buying the breakout. That was also aligning with breaking above the open of the day. So I knew this was going to turn the daily bar green at that moment. And more, two other concepts in mind. I was targeting this intraday high. That was my target on this particular trade. Of course, we could have hit that and moved much higher, but that's just that's another topic, for now. And I also thought, and this is a very rare example, by the way, but it is what it is, that once we're, forming this opening price action and starting a direction on the day, usually the high or low of the day forms very early. So I was expecting this to be the low bar of the day as we were heading up. And at a minimum, like I said, I was looking for this target to be reached. So what happened was, and here's kind of the key point here relative to the way I look at the 15-minute chart. I don't look at, so in other words, once I got in here, I don't worry about all this choppiness. You had an inside bar that came down and it kind of took out the immediate 15-minute magnitude, then it went up, then you had another, it looks like, inside bar, and then we kind of broke down and had a 50% rule and we went high. I don't really follow all of that once I'm in the trade. I just look at the overall structure, and to me, the structure, this is going to be the low of the day. This was the intraday high. Price normally, makes one push, some directional push early in the day, and then then you look for maybe a test of that intraday high. In this case, this was the first move of the day. We then paused, and it looked like we were going to attack that, first push of the day again. And we did, and I exited. So that's that. And that's why I just wanted to show you one little concept here is, for me, for my day trading, even though I'm using the 15-minute chart, I don't necessarily, get stopped out with every little strat, setup that happens here. I'm just looking very broadly. Where's the low of the day? What's the first move of the day? And are we going to attack that first move of the day on another move? And this is the interesting thing here too, why I would have actually, well, two things. Once we attack the high of the day, that's kind of it. Then the question is, maybe you get some extension, maybe not. But once you get this, once you see the high of a day attacked and you see the reversal bar, the 2 up, 2 down form, right, failing to extend that, that's an exit for sure here. And, you would have still had a small gain from that type of trade. But if you wanted to go short, I think that's an excellent short because, number one, on the monthly chart, you're still in the down time frame. And given the nature of these daily bars here, this is like 3 days up that really don't look like, normally 3 days up, you're going to see green, green, green. And even there, you can get a good reversal. Here, I'm almost sensing this is a big bear flag. Even though we brought in lower, the subsequent price action doesn't look too strong to me to be, heading up right now. We'll see how that weekly chart closes. But to me, this is just like 3 little bear flag bars. So when you're failing at the high of the day, on a choppy day like this and get this reversal signal 2 up, 2 down right there, I think that's a great short trade to at least take out this, low. And then obviously we went much lower. And if nothing else, if anything, I see this, I think Home Depot might be failing this broadening action. I mean, I'm not going to predict it, but something doesn't look great here. And on this weekly chart, I really want to see, how it closes on the week. We have 1 day to go tomorrow. This could end up being like just a very neutral bar. And for all I know, next week we start and open and head lower and take out all these lows and then go much more in line with the monthly chart lower for a second month in a row. But we'll see. I'm just trying to show you how it all drills down to the day trade. And in this case, like I said, wasn't the greatest looking setup I've ever seen, but it was something, and it had a lot of logic built in, and it did reach the target. Just quickly, let me type in Boeing, because that was much more of a standard trade I look to take, where a lot of things line up. Here, the monthly chart. So you see immediately that's green heading higher. You can see, let me see, my eyes aren't great. Targets above. So, in terms of this month, we're definitely working our way up to this target. Next month, if we close green, I'll expect that high to be taken out, and then knowing that we have these targets above. So we'll see what happens in February. We might get some good day trades, developing here. But then if we go to the weekly chart, whoops, I could just click on that. You see we're above, for the 4 days of the week here, we're above the open heading higher. And on the daily chart, we're above the midpoint of yesterday, and we're above, the close of, the midpoint of yesterday, and we're above the open of today here so far. So what I did earlier, this was a much more standard trade I looked to take where everything aligned, where I got in above the opening bar high. Here was the open of the day, and then the 15-minute chart kind of held green. We broke out 2 down, 2 up kind of thing. So I bought that. I was targeting the overnight highs, and actually I have another video I posted where you can see where I kind of exited up there. So that's that. And again, that's that same concept. 1 push up to start the day, pause, 2nd push up. That's all I'm looking for. Then you get the failure bar. So you have to get can be stopped out over here. I don't think this would have been a great short trade given the overall strong condition on the daily and weekly and monthly chart, but it's still a slight pullback, whereas Home Depot I think looked like a much better short trade once this intraday high failed. So, but anyway, this is a much more standard, day trade where you get everything aligning, and I'm looking at the open for at least one push up and maybe a second push up on the day given the strong conditions with time frame continuity. But Home Depot is another example that has a lot of interesting components to it, so I thought I'd point it out. And again, this is the type of thing that I look to do with the Strat when it comes to day trades.